Hi, welcome back to our EB-2 NIW series. In part 1, we discuss an overview of the EB-2 NIW, what it is, who may qualify, and how the main requirements work. Now in part 2, we are going to focus on the endeavor statement. So if you have questions like what is an endeavor statement, how is an endeavor statement written, or what should be included in an endeavor statement, stay with me because we will use an actual sample to break down the structure section by section. What is an endeavor statement? The endeavor statement is the core narrative of your EB-2 NIW petition. It's where you explain your case in an organized way, not just by listing your background, but by showing how your background, your proposed endeavor, and your evidence satisfy the EB-2 NIW requirements. An endeavor statement has two major parts. First is EB-2 eligibility. Second is the National Interest Waiver or NIW section. This is where you explain how your proposed endeavor meets the three prongs under Matter of Dhanasar. So what is Matter of Dhanasar? The USCIS uses the Matter of Dhanasar framework to evaluate whether the job offer and labor certification requirements should be waived. The NIW part of the endeavor statement is built around the Matter of Dhanasar framework, and it must answer three questions or three prongs. Prong 1. Does your proposed endeavor have substantial merit and national importance? Prong 2. Are you well positioned? Are you capable of advancing your proposed endeavor? Prong 3. Will the U.S. benefit from waiving the job offer and labor certification requirement? These three prongs guide how the NIW argument should be organized. Now, let's take a look at a sample EB-2 NIW endeavor statement. So we're going to use this sample to show how the endeavor statement is written. But please note that this is for informational purposes only, and this does not constitute legal advice. The goal is to help you understand what a well-organized endeavor statement can look like, especially if you are exploring self-petitioning or trying to understand how the endeavor statement is structured. So for this video, we will skip the filing forms and fees and go directly to the endeavor statement. An endeavor statement begins with basic petition details: the petitioner's name, address, the date when the petition was filed, the USCIS address, and a subject line. Then, the opening section gives USCIS an overview of the case. In this sample, the petitioner first provides an overview of her background. So she states, I, Dr. Jane A. Doe. Then she explains what her profession is. I'm a bioethics and public health specialist. And then she also provides more details about her expertise or her background. Then she also provides a summary or an overview of her proposed endeavor. So she says that my proposed endeavor is to strengthen clinical governance in the U.S. clinical research system. So the first paragraphs of the endeavor statement are basically a summary of your background, your expertise, and what your proposed endeavor is about. Then, the endeavor statement also includes an outline. So it will be easier for the USCIS officer reviewing this petition to know the structure or how the entire document is presented or outlined. So if you will notice, Section 1 focuses on EB-2 eligibility. The next three sections are about the NIW component. So they address the three prongs of the Matter of Dhanasar framework. Section 2 answers prong 1, substantial merit and national importance. Section 3 answers prong 2, well positioned. Section 4 answers prong 3, the benefit of waiving the job offer and labor certification requirements. So the entire endeavor statement is structured this way. Now, after the outline, the next part is the exhibits index. So what are exhibits? Exhibits are the evidence supporting the claims in your endeavor statement. So now you might be wondering, so this is the index. Now where are the actual exhibits, or where are the evidence? Now I'll just go here. I'll scroll quickly over here. This is the last page of the endeavor statement. Generally, the evidence or the documents you present as evidence for your EB-2 NIW petition are located after this document, after the endeavor statement. So later, I'll show you an example of how the exhibit or the evidence is presented in the exhibit package for an EB-2 NIW petition. But first, let's go back here to the exhibits index. So there's no fixed rule on how you want to organize your exhibits, but in this case, the exhibits are organized this because they make the most sense for this endeavor statement. They correspond directly to how the claims are made in this endeavor statement. So for the first part of the claims mentioned here in the endeavor statement, they're about the petitioner's educational background, and hence Exhibit A talks about her credentials and professional background. So for Exhibit A, these are the evidence or documents presented under that exhibit. Exhibit B is about the professional plan. C, professional experience and employment history. D, recognition for achievements and contributions. E is about publications, and then so on and so forth. Okay? So the point here is that each exhibit should match a specific claim. So if you claim you have advanced degree, then include your diploma, your transcript, or academic evaluation in the package, in your EB-2 NIW petition package. If you claim professional experience, then you must include employment letters, contracts that prove that you have indeed those professional experiences. So now that we have seen how the exhibits are organized and what makes the first parts or first few pages of the endeavor statement, let's go to the main body of the document. And let's start with the EB-2 eligibility. So Section 1 is eligibility as an individual with an advanced degree and exceptional ability. Section 1A is for advanced degree. So Section 1A explains how the petitioner satisfies the EB-2 advanced degree requirement. In this sample, the petitioner lists her PhD, her 2 masters, her bachelors, and then she also explains how her education is related to bioethics, public health, and her proposed endeavor. So there are explanations over here. Now the supporting evidence for each of the claims she's making are included here in these exhibits. So that means the actual copies of her diplomas, her transcripts, her records are in these exhibits. Exhibits A2 to A5. So if we're going back to the index over here, A2 for her PhD, A3, A4 for her master's, and then A5 for her bachelor's. That's how the index, or that's how the exhibits are organized, and that's how they correspond to the endeavor statement. Okay. Next part is Section B of Section 1. So this is eligibility as an individual with exceptional ability. So remember, for EB-2, for the EB-2 requirement, you only need to qualify through one route. It's either through the advanced degree or the exceptional ability. But the USCIS is not stopping you if you want to demonstrate that you qualified through both routes. So in this case, The petitioner already qualifies through the advanced degree because she has a PhD, but she also presents exceptional ability to show the full strength of her background. And she does this through 4 categories. So first, her official academic records. Second, more than 13 years of full-time professional experience. Now, the guidance from the USCIS about this is that if you want to meet this criterion, you must demonstrate that you have at least 10 years of progressive full-time experience. So in this case, the petitioner has more than 10. In fact, she has more than 13 years of full-time experience. The next pages provide context on what those full-time experiences are. And then again, she mentions the exhibits or the evidence for each of those claims. Third is about recognition for achievements and contributions. So in this case, the petitioner is saying that she has evidence for recognition through her selective appointments in different editorial and advisory roles. And then she goes on to argue that these roles are not based on general membership, but they are only offered to individuals with expertise, with scholarly contributions and professional standing in the field. And then she goes on to list what those roles and appointments are, and then again, the exhibits corresponding to each of those claims. The fourth one is about comparable evidence, including her publications, citations, and her competitive research roles. So for the publication section, the endeavor statement does not just say she has publications. It explains the number of publications, the journals, her role, and the relevance of her research. And then there's also a table here so that it's going to be easier for the reviewing officer to see the different types of publications that she has. Right? Okay. So the main point here is that every claim you make in your endeavor statement should be backed by verifiable evidence. So in these exhibits have her copies of her articles, her peer-reviewed articles, and also her Google Scholar citation metrics, her Google Scholar profile. So it's very important to provide evidence. If you cannot provide evidence for a claim, you might as well not include it, because unsupported claims can raise questions, they can weaken your petition, and ultimately they may lead to an RFE, or a request for evidence, which will of course delay your petition. Alright, so that's for section 1. Section 1 is about the EB-2 eligibility criteria. Now we're going to section 2. Section 2, my proposed endeavor has both substantial merit and national importance. First, let's tackle the first part, substantial merit. Substantial merit means that your proposed endeavor has real value. It should address a problem, a need, or an opportunity in the United States. In this endeavor statement, the proposed endeavor is to strengthen clinical or ethical governance in the U.S. clinical research system. How? Through frameworks, policy guidance, tools, training, programs, and so on and so forth. Now, to show substantial merit, the statement identifies 3 U.S. problems or challenges. So, if you're making your endeavor statement, it's ultimately up to you how many problems you want to present. Ideally, it should be at least 3 problems. Just to demonstrate that your proposed endeavor will indeed solve or provide substantial merit or benefit to the U.S. in the U.S. context. So, first, let's take a look at problem 1. It says here that the U.S. clinical research system produces incomplete and non-representative medical evidence. So, in a nutshell, what is the petitioner saying here? The statement is saying that pregnant and lactating individuals are often excluded from clinical trials even though they commonly need medications and medical treatment. Then, why is this a problem? The petitioner explains that this is a problem, and this problem supports substantial merit because it shows a real healthcare need. Every year, 3.5 million births occur in the United States. Pregnant and lactating individuals often require medications, but clinical trials frequently exclude them, and because of that exclusions, doctors have limited evidence of whether certain medications are safe, effective, or properly dosed during pregnancy or lactation. Now, that creates a meaningful medical and public health problem that the proposed endeavor seeks to address. Now, at this point, I want to quickly show how the evidence for these claims is organized in the exhibit package. So for this section, for this endeavor statement, the statement uses peer-reviewed articles, government data, and other reference materials to support the claims made here. Now, let's take a look at this. So the statement mentions these numbers, these statistics, this information, right? 3.5 million births. Now, this claim is supported by Exhibit I-1. So this is a sample exhibit. We are under Exhibit I, reference materials and source documents cited in the endeavor statement. So in this exhibit package, Exhibit I-1 identifies the article title, the authors, the date of publication, and the website URL that has that peer-reviewed article. It also includes the excerpts, or the specific excerpt where the cited statistic appears. So earlier, if you remember, we mentioned 3.5 million births in the endeavor statement. This is the exact research or peer-reviewed article that mentioned that. And that is a part of your evidence package for your EB-2 NIW petition. So let's just scroll over here. These are the other material used for the endeavor statement, the other documents used. You might be wondering, why should this be included in the petition? This type of evidence is needed because your endeavor statement cannot rely on general statements alone. For EB-2 NIW, especially under substantial merit and national importance, you need to show that the problem is real, documented, and important beyond your personal opinion. So, when the statement says that pregnant and lactating individuals are excluded from clinical trials, or that this creates gaps in medication safety, those claims need to be supported by sources, and not just blog sources or random source you find in the internet. They have to be credible sources. So that is why peer-reviewed articles, government data, policy reports, and official statistics are useful, because they help show USCIS that the problem exists, the problem affects the United States, the issue is supported by credible research and public data, and that your proposed endeavor is connected to a real documented need. So going back here to our endeavor statement, so this is problem 1. The first paragraphs are about the problem itself, and then the last part, it provides a brief explanation of how the proposed endeavor is going to address that. Right? So the structure is that problem, evidence, and then the proposed solution. So in the next part of this endeavor statement, the national importance, it gives some more in-depth explanation of the specific activities that the proposed endeavor or that the petitioner will be doing for her proposed endeavor. So it's very important that your endeavor statement does not just say, my proposed endeavor is important. It has to identify specific problems, support them with sources, and then connect your proposed endeavor to those problems. Okay, so that's for substantial merit. After the substantial merit, the next part is national importance. So this is the section where you explain what exactly you will do, where you will do it, who will benefit, and why the impact goes beyond one employer, one client, or one local project. So the USCIS is looking for whether your proposed endeavor has potential broader impact. Okay, so the first sections of this subsection is about the specific activities of the proposed endeavor. So the petitioner goes on to explain the core activities, the scope and focus of her proposed endeavor. So it's these parts: number 1, number 2, number 3. These are the specific services, professional activities that she will be offering as part of her proposed endeavor. Next part, the endeavor statement also identifies the target areas. So in this case, it's Washington, D.C., Maryland, Virginia, or the DMV region, Boston, and then the Research Triangle part in North Carolina. The petitioner identified these as the target states, and then she also identified the target institutions or organizations that will benefit the most from her proposed endeavor. The next part, she explains, or she provides more explanation on why her proposed endeavor has national importance. And that is because it's gonna provide impact on patient populations. It's going to affect clinical trial efficiency, and it will provide a positive impact on public trust and participation in clinical research. Finally, the proposed endeavor, or this document, this section B3, it connects the proposed endeavor to national priorities, including National Institutes of Health, inclusion requirements, federal priorities on scientific integrity, and human subjects protection, and maternal health research. This is very important because if you can connect your proposed endeavor to actual federal policies or agency guidelines or guidance or executive orders, then the national importance of your argument becomes stronger, because you are not just saying that, hey, my proposed endeavor matters, but you are actually showing that the problem has already been recognized at a broader level and your proposed endeavor contributes to addressing it. Okay? So that's section 2, which addresses prong 1. My proposed endeavor has substantial merit and national importance. Now let's go to section 3. Section 3, I am well positioned to advance my endeavor. So for section 3, this answers prong 2. But you need to show more than your professional background. So it's not enough to say, I have a PhD, I have a decade of experience. No. USCIS wants to see whether you are actually prepared to carry out the specific proposed endeavor. So in this sample, the petitioner connects her education, professional experience, publications, recognition and research roles, training work, and institutional collaborations to the proposed endeavor. So she's saying that this is not the first time I will be doing this. I've been doing this my entire life. I have enough evidence, enough experience to show that I am well qualified to do this in the United States. Okay? Now the next part, demonstrating that she is well positioned to advance her endeavor, is this one: a development of a detailed plan for the proposed endeavor. So this is important because this entire endeavor statement, it explains your argument. It explains how you qualify for the EB-2 and then the NIW. The professional plan gives more detail on how the proposed endeavor will be carried out. So the USCIS actually lists this as probable or another important evidence to support your prong 2 well position. It says that you can include a detailed plan of how you are going to execute your proposed endeavor. And in this case, it's this one, the applicant's or the petitioner's professional plan. Okay? And then the next part is about progress. So the petitioner discusses prior training programs, research collaborations, her current postdoctoral research connected or closely related to the field of her proposed endeavor. So all these experiences, they all demonstrate that she is well positioned to advance her proposed endeavor. Then lastly, for this section, support from industry and academic experts. So these letters are important because USCIS specifically mentions expert letters or letters of support. So these letters should not be generic. They shouldn't just say that you are an expert and hence I recommend you. It should provide more information beyond that. So your supporters must be experts themselves. The letters they're going to provide must explain their credentials. They should explain how they know your work, what they observed, how they come up with the conclusion that you are well qualified and that you are an expert in this field. So these sections here, or these paragraphs here, are just summaries from the actual letters of support included in the exhibit package. So for example here, this is from a professor, next one is from a pharmacist with a PhD, and then the corresponding letters are again included in the actual exhibits or evidence package. But for this part, the petition quotes statements from the letters of support themselves. So these are very important because these show that there are experts that are actually proving that you have indeed the expertise to carry out this type of work or proposed endeavor in the United States. Okay, so that's section 3. I am well positioned to advance my proposed endeavor. So just stick with me. We're almost through the endeavor statement. We're now here at section 4, which is about prong 3. So section 4 asks whether on balance it would benefit the United States to waive the job offer and labor certification requirements. So in simple terms, prong 3 asks, why should the USCIS allow you to pursue this proposed endeavor without the usual and lengthy employer sponsorship and perm process? So in this endeavor statement, the petitioner explains that the labor certification process does not fit the nature of her proposed endeavor because her proposed endeavor is not limited to one employer, one job title, or one fixed set of duties. It involves collaborations with research institutions, with research boards, with clinical trial teams, academic centers. It's going to involve advisory roles, project-based engagements, and so on and so forth. So that matters because perm is designed for a specific permanent job with one employer. Then the endeavor statement also explains that the United States would still benefit from the proposed endeavor even if other qualified U.S. workers are available, because the argument is that the proposed endeavor offers broader benefits to the U.S. clinical research system. And then finally, the endeavor statement explains the urgency of the national interest and balances the factors under Dhanasar. So prong 3 basically answers 4 points: why perm does not fit the proposed endeavor, why the United States still benefits from your proposed endeavor even if there are other workers or professionals present in the country, Next, why the national interest is urgent. And lastly, why the balance favors granting the waiver. So the key point is that prong 3 is where you explain why the waiver itself makes sense. And that's the end of our endeavor statement. So our key takeaways for this video is that your EB-2 NIW endeavor statement should clearly show that, first, you satisfy the EB-2 requirement. Second, that your proposed endeavor has both substantial merit and national importance. Third, that you are well positioned to advance the proposed endeavor. Fourth, that waiving the job offer and labor certification requirement would benefit the United States. And very important, you have to take note of this. Every claim you make in your endeavor statement must be supported by evidence and must be organized through exhibits. You cannot rely on opinion alone. Otherwise, that would definitely trigger an RFE or request for evidence. So that's it for a video. Now, if you are interested on what an EB-2 NIW business plan is, then watch out for our next video, because we're going to explain what the USCIS needs to see in an EB-2 NIW business plan, and that includes the executive summary, market or industry need, job creation, broader impact, and financial projections. So if you found this helpful, please like, comment, and subscribe, and then follow PS Beacon for more EB-2 NIW and US immigration content. Bye. See you.